the stories of how documentaries are germinated are always interesting. Maybe it's a small story in a newspaper that someone happens to see. In your case, this was your teammate and your classmate at Brown.
Yes.
Had you followed him through the class newsletters, or you kept in touch?
We kept in touch, but not, I mean, it was very difficult to keep in touch with Tom Cattina in the bush. 10 years ago, there was no way to get a hold of him. So I knew he was in Africa, but we had fallen out of touch. So when I got an email that read, the subject line was, "Catman Tom Cattina needs our help." And essentially a truck that was carrying a year's worth of supplies for food and medical supplies was hijacked and raided, and this was right before the rainy season. So we had, as a Brown community, we put together $102,000 and got him a new truck and filled it up with even more supplies and got it up to him 2 days before the rainy season. So it's a very personal thing, for me, because we bonded on the football field, and we've kind of stayed that way through life. Even though we fall away, we still have each other's backs. So
and then,
it's very personal.
How did the light go on? Boom! This guy is the subject of a doc.
Well, that was the moment when I realized that he was in peril, that he was in a war zone. I mean, I knew he was, but to hear that he was in the middle of the Nuba Mountains with bombs raining around him and shelling taking place, I thought, what am I doing? I'm a filmmaker. I'm a documentarian. Why am I not moving on this? And so I reached out to him, and he said, no. I'm not worthy. No. He said, no, I'm not worthy. I'm dull. I don't think I'd be, I would be good subject matter, and I had to convince him. And I did, and he was very reluctant, but that's his nature. His nature is like the Nubian people, very, very humble and loving, but not wanting attention. So it's very typical of Tom to do that. But I'm sure glad I did it, and he's one of my greatest heroes.
This film has been screened for Congress. It's been screened for the Paris mayor's office. It's been screened, hugely importantly, at The Hague and in the Italian Senate. But Jeff, from the point of view of a producer, you have to be very delicate about the POV, because if you say, I'm making a film about the sufferings of the Nubian people, that's one kind of documentary. But you also don't want to say, here's this white guy who's the hero of all of this. And so how do you nuance, selling the idea of this and then putting together a film that doesn't do what Tom Cattina was obviously afraid was going to happen? And I don't think it happened. I think it was so balanced and subtle.
Well, part of it goes back to when Ken first approached me about the film. The salient feature to the story that I could tell, and from the little bit of footage that Ken showed me, was Tom Cattina was a singular person with a singular vocation, and he had no affect. There was no pomposity to him. There was no desire to preach. There was just this guy from upstate New York who decided to do something with his life that was bigger than himself. And it was that altruistic aspect of him that sold me on getting involved in the film. And I think comes through in the film, so that you don't see it as this great white hope person. You just see somebody who's a human being with other human beings working to try to improve their lives.
And you two had worked together before, so you could read each other when it came to knowing that this was
I knew he'd be a guy who would go to Sudan, and I'd be a guy who would not go to Sudan.
He initially said, I don't know if that's a great idea to do a film about a doctor in Africa. It's been done. And I said, let me just sit you down. And so we sat down at a Starbucks.
Wait, Stanley and Livingston?
We sat down in a Starbucks in Brentwood, and I showed him a small teaser of Tom, and he took off the headphones and looked at me. He said, I'll do it. I'm with you on this, because that's Tom. His heart is just it's so huge, and it comes across, I think, in the film, and it came across in that teaser. So we're blessed to have Jeff and this team, Sarah and Randy. It's a collaborative effort here. So
before I get to you, Sarah, how did you persuade Tom that it's really not going to be just about him, and that this would be a tool for teaching?
By actually showing up in the Nuba Mountains at
And
the Mother
that's-
Mercy Hospital. I showed up and I proved to him that I was
he
there.
didn't know you were coming, and there you were on the threshold?
He knew I was coming, but he wasn't sure that I would make it. And so when I actually made it there and proved to him that I wanted to make a film about him and about the Nubian people, and I proved to him that the story that I wanted to tell included the Nubian people and they're living in harmony there and their conflict and their plight, he eventually signed on. It took me 8 days while I was there for the first 3 weeks, 8 days to finally sit him down and get an interview. He was that reluctant because he's got a job to do and he doesn't want it to be about him. He's that modest, he's that humble. So it took some persuasive talk, but we finally got him.
And Sarah, what you had to work with as the editor, the footage was just astounding. Had you seen anything like this before when you began to work on this?
Oh, certainly not. No. I mean, that's probably one of the things that drew me to it, apart from Tom, was you'd almost say the travelogue aspect, but it's not quite that. It's seeing the region and it's seeing how the people live there, and that struck me as very unique. You know, that you actually, I'm not sure how much of it we get in the film because it does focus quite a bit on Tom, but I like the moments in the film where you do get a sense of their life and just what the people are like. You know, there that they. They
really
have this attitude about them that Tom talks about. And
it set the pitch for the film that it would start with the attack and the fear of the attack too. So for all three, that was obviously a deliberate decision to sort of metaphorically shove people out of the airplane and put them on the ground right away.
Yeah, we went back and forth about exactly how to open the film. There were a couple options we had, but that certainly seemed the strongest, and yeah, I think it does. It does drop you in the middle of it. I mean, it's one of the reviews noted, and which I was. It's nice to see things fed back to you in reviews that you were thinking of when you made it. Like it starts like a travelogue with these pretty pictures of chickens in the countryside and children playing. And then it turns, and that is the design, and that's what we were going for, is to lead you in thinking, oh yes, Africa, I've seen it. Yep, there's a hut, I know those. And then it turns, and that's the moment that Ken was looking for at the beginning to sort of hook you in a sense, but really let you know.
And that's life there. Life there is, as I like to say, it's calm until it's not. It's beautiful there, and people, as I said, get along so well, and everything's just peaceful. And then it's not. The Antonovs roll in, or the Sukhois roll in, and hell is unleashed. And so that's what I wanted to depict in that opening scene. And we really went round and round about that because we didn't want to frighten people away. We didn't want it to be too graphic and have people say, I can't watch this film. We wanted them to be able to get over that, but we also wanted them to know that this is reality.
We also knew that we had to get to the back end of the film. We didn't want to blow the big thing in the beginning and then have to up the ante after that.
Right.
So it was going to be that kind of attack, but it was going to be attack light.
But your crew was very courageous in the middle of it.
The crew was one other. No one would go with me. So I did most of the sound and I did a lot of the shooting. And I had 3 guys on the hook here from Los Angeles. Once they did a little research, they decided to pull out. So I found a guy from Nairobi that was willing to go. And by the way, when I recruited him the second time, he said, hell no over my dead body. I'll never go back there. So there was one other person and myself that went in.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Boy.
Thank you to my wife for allowing me to go.
Randy, again, the question for the music would be the same as about the POV, that you had to balance. You could make it all Nubian music if you chose to, but there were other considerations and other aesthetics, right?
Yeah. In terms of the music, I just want to say something. Can I react to something else? And
Sure.
I'll talk about the music. When I first saw a screening of it with these 3, I was devastated. I just was devastated. I was inspired. I was confused. I mean, I recognized the plight of these people, these beautiful people, and the inspired efforts of the doctor. But then it makes you reflect about your own life, too. And I still do. Every time I see it, I think about my own life and how simple and easy it is compared to these people. But as far as the music, when I first saw it, there's an incredibly rich opportunity for music because you have North Africa and you have an intersection of North African music, which is of the African people, and then you have, it's very close to the Middle East, so you have a lot of influence from the Middle East. And that area, it's the same thing with the religions are all mixed up together. The dance is all mixed up with the African and Middle Eastern, and the same thing with the music. There's influences from everything. There's influences also from popular music, from popular Sudanese music. So in this situation, because it's a documentary and with a very important message, the music definitely cannot get in the way. It has to be understated, has to be supportive at all times. There are a few moments in the film where the music can stand on its own, where there's not narration, and then you need to have the music say something. But because of the message and the importance of the film, the music is in a supportive way.
Jeff, it's hard to get financing for documentaries, and I expect the farther you get from Los Angeles, the harder it is to get the financing. But I saw a lot of Carlson names up there, so you know, this was a family undertaking, a big family support for.
Basically, I was fortunate enough to come on after the money was
Okay,
raised.
all right.
Ken would be able to.
So
tell you
here's your
better.
opportunity to thank all the members of your family for.
Each and every one, thank you. We're blessed to be able to be able to finance something like this, and it's really our passion. It's my wife Katrina. I think she's out there. She gave me a big thumbs up when she heard that I wanted to do this, and it's, as we know in documentary filmmaking, it's a labor of love, and it's come back tenfold. I'm not saying financially. I'm just saying in what it has done, and I think we discussed this, but the Heart of Nuba is primarily responsible for the ceasefire that has taken place. We were actually able to get the film into the hands of President Omar Hassan al-Bashir.
I was going to ask
Yeah.
if he'd seen it.
And so he saw it, and let me just make sure I come clean on this. There are so many organizations that are over there and individuals that have been working relentlessly to expose this conflict and to make a difference, and they have. I think we have just achieved a tipping point. So we actually were able to get the film into Omar Hassan al-Bashir's hands. He saw it, and he reacted with shock and shame. So he said, and he said, I'm going to declare a ceasefire based on this film. So it was a pretty exciting moment for me. And then I was invited over to Khartoum to interview him, and that happened last September. And I got the opportunity to interview the villain, the antagonist of my film, which was a surreal experience. But once again, we built on what so many other people, so many organizations had laid the brickwork, had laid put the time and effort into exposing these atrocities.
Well, please thank the panel for the Heart of Nuba.
Thank you.